Hey guys, Nick Wheeler here with Wheeler Custom Knives. I've had a lot of people ask me recently how I do the radius spine and choil on a lot of my knives, and I'm making one of my small pocket fixed blades for my good friend Dudley, and it needs to be rounded over. So I thought I'd fire the camera up and maybe try to help some guys out. Now, please keep in mind, this is a simple knife. And the main objective with this one is just going to be to round everything over all the way around the perimeter of it. And I want it to look right, I want it to feel right, but I don't have any super tight tolerances because I'm not going to be fitting, another part up to it. I'm not going to be fitting like a machined guard or anything up to the radius that I'm going to be putting on this. So if we were doing a knife like a hidden tang like this, this brings in it introduces some issues that I don't have on the little knife. The dropped edge sticking out away from the ricasso, the lack of material supporting you on the tang side. Those things, they all make it a little more difficult. This process I'm going to do for this video won't really work for that, so I'm going to save that for another time. Now, if you want to be really particular, no matter what type of blade you're doing, you can get yourself a set of radius gauges. Basically, these are just a series of pieces that are stamped out of stainless steel. They got a corresponding radius stamped into each one, and they've got all these varying surfaces around that are made to whatever the radius is for each piece. This is a 1/32, so all these little corners and the tip out here, these all will correspond to a 1/32 radius. They're neat to have, they're good for certain things, but for a knife like this, and for most people, these are way overkill. And this is just a cheap set, but it's good enough for who it's for. So, a knife like this, just use your micrometer eyeball and you'll be good to go. So. It's a pretty simple process. Nobody ever showed me this. It's just something I came up with some trial and error. I really don't know how most guys do it. What I'm going to do in this video is not the only way I do it. There are other methods that I use in this shop when I need to, but for a knife like this, I came up with a pretty quick and painless way of doing it. And maybe some guys won't like the result, but I've made a lot of these knives of people that were happy with it, so I think that it will probably yield results that you'll like. If you tag along for a little bit, you'll see how I do it, and then you can decide that for yourself. So that's it. Thanks, guys. Here's the potential victim. This is actually a Damascus blade. It's normally I would do this in the annealed state, but this blade, I hardened it because this really isn't that big a deal to do either way. It is rough ground right now. It's not quite finished ground. It's been surface ground on the flats, and it's fairly straight or not straight, but square to its sides along the perimeter of this thing. So the first thing we need to do is fire up the grinder. I've got a 10-inch serrated wheel. It doesn't matter. You could use a smaller wheel, you could use a bigger wheel, you can use a platen, whatever. I just have this. It's fast. I've got a somewhat worn 60 grit 3M belt on here. And the first thing we're going to do is knock these corners down and take some of the bulk of this off. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, now in order to get this inside curve in here, we can't just do that on the big wheel. I mean, you could do it off the corner of the wheel, but it would be making things a lot harder than they need to be. So for these inside curves, I like to hog the material off with the small wheel attachment. So at this point I have all the major roughing in done. Came in and put a nice curve all the way around this, and have a rough round over radius all the way around this. Now the next thing I do is move to a J-Flex 120 grit. These are Hermes belt. They're real flexible. I've been using these things since I bought this grinder, which was 18 years ago, and these things work really well for cleaning this up. Because these will help flow around this curve. But you don't want to dwell in one spot, or it'll, even though it's such a flexible belt, if you dwell in one spot, it will still cause a facet, which is not what we want. And hopefully you can see there's not too much glare, but that's smoothing that out and putting a nice finish on it. The trickiest thing for these is down here on the end to not get any facets on it, but I have a trick for, you want to try to blend that all as well as you can, but I have a trick to blend it some more. Now this one I should be able to wrap the 2-inch wide belt into this curve. If you have a real tight curve, like a finger cutout or something like that, you typically need to go down to a belt that's been ripped narrower, like a 1-inch wide belt, but this one should work for this. Okay, that's it for the 120. Okay, now we're taking this thing to the buffer. I went ahead and went over this with a 320 grit belt, the J-Flex, just like the 120. Didn't record it because it was just the same thing. This is Brownell's Polish Array. It's a greaseless, they call it a buffing compound. This is a 240 grit, and it will throw sparks actually, so I wouldn't really think of it as a buffing compound, but like it says on the label, there are no additives in this. It's just glue and grit, so you have to take a Ziploc bag. I spray a little water in there just out of a spray bottle and keep this in a refrigerator, or I guarantee you it will dry out and it will be garbage. It has to be moist. You need to be able to stick your thumbnail on the end of it like that. That's what it's like when you get it, and you need to keep it that way. If you keep it that way, it will last for a long time. But first time I started using this stuff, I did not pay that much attention to that. Left some out, and it just takes a few days and it'll be trash. So anyway, I'm gonna fire up the buffer. Throw a little grit on there. Now, this isn't a video about buffer safety, but please, if you do this, be very, very careful. Now, where this comes in really handy is down here on the end, because I've done probably a couple hundred of these things, and it's still hard to get it completely smooth around the end without a little bit of a facet here and there. So this comes in really nice for that. Now if you have a bunch of big ugly facets, this is not going to fix anything. But if it's just a matter of blending things, it'll blend everything really nicely. And that's that with the 240. Okay, on this wheel I've got a green chrome rouge, and that's gonna bring this up to a mirror around that profile. Now it's all covered with green rouge right now, but I have a nice smooth mirror polished radius all the way around the profile of this thing. Now let's say you don't have a buffer, or maybe you didn't get it as smooth as you need to on the J-Flex belts. You can clean this up by hand, and on certain eyes I have to do this anyway. Just take a fold of leather, pinch your blade in there. You want to get the idea here. The idea is to protect the blade, but you want to get it high enough off of the vice jaws that you have a fairly unobstructed area to work in. And then this is one of the sanding paddles that I use for this. This is just a piece of oak handle, and this is a 3M squeegee, piece of a squeegee pad from an automotive paint supply shop. And you can just wrap your paper around nice and tight, and then you can just work that surface and true it up. Now, the greener you are at this, probably the coarser you're going to have to start on the paper. I mean, you could start with, like 120 grit and do some pretty serious shaping if that was what you need to do. I don't actually need to do that on this knife, but I wanted to show it just so people had an idea of another option. And if and you can also do that mirror polish, and then if you don't want the mirror polish, you can come back with a piece like this and whatever grit you like and do a satin finish. Just do nice smooth pulls off this thing. And really that's all there is to it for that particular method that I use to put a nice radius on that perimeter. So hopefully that helps some guys. Thanks for watching.